Welcome to the Sleep and Health Podcast. I'm your host, Tom Coleman, health scientist and sleep coach. On this week's episode, I will be talking to Martin McDonagh. Martin will guide us through an intriguing journey. I'm not going to say much more than that, but an intriguing journey, his journey and the journey of discovery of self that I believe is very powerful and will help you. And this season is proudly sponsored by Zenflor Calm. I take it myself every day because it's backed by evidence-based science. But if you're anything like me, you'll want to know what's in it. Zenflor Calm is formulated with 1714 bacterial culture and vitamin B6. It's blended with saffron extract to help relax and support emotional balance. And we all need more of that. So, Martin McDonagh, thank you so much for agreeing to come on my podcast. It's an honor to have you here. I can't wait to have a chat to you about multiple things. But first, maybe I'd love if you could tell our listeners or whoever follows this, tell us a little bit about you.
Well, I was born in Galway and lived there, and then at 27, I went to Saudi Arabia. That was the big move of my life. I went to college in Galway and graduated and got a job in a village in Saudi Arabia and spent 2 years there. And then I traveled from there to America and from America back to Europe, to Paris, and then got on a bus for the magical bus tour to India and headed off on that grand tour. Arrived in Athens and the bus crowd told us bus is cancelled. And the choice was go home or you can go on local buses. So I said, whoa, I'm going to go for the adventure. Yes. So off we headed on local buses, went through, of course, Iran. And of course, the revolution was happening, and there was hundreds of thousands of people on the streets in Tehran, and the military beating them up and putting them into trucks. And then eventually the bus moved on, and we went on into northern Afghanistan, to northern Iran, heading to Afghanistan. And there the military pulled us over and wanted to know all about what we weren't doing. And ended up getting in, after much ado, into Afghanistan. And in Istanbul, I had met a man, a lovely man and his wife. They were Americans. And he said to me, where are you going? I said, we're going on to India, hopefully. And he said, well, you're passing through Afghanistan. I will meet you in Kabul on this day in this hotel at this hour. And I said, who's this fellow? And they were flying, but we were going by buses, as I said. And we ended up going to that hotel at that hour and that day. And he walked in. And he said, great to see you. Now go to your room, pack your bags, because tonight the Russians are invading. So went to my room, packed the bags, and off we went into Pakistan, on into Amritsar, to the Sikh Holy Temple. And from there we went on to New Delhi and all sorts of adventures, but eventually arrived in the holy city of Rishikesh. We had arrived and spent... A great story there. When I went into a little restaurant, I took out a letter of introduction. I was reading it, and the Sikh owner came over and he said, what's that? And I said, it's a letter of introduction from America, from a yoga master. And he grabbed it from my hands and left the restaurant. I was in shock. My God, what's happened? And he came back and he said, grab the bags. And the waiter grabbed the bags and we headed down the road. And it was like the Pied Piper. I felt, my God, what's happened? All so quickly. And lo and behold, in the distance, I saw a man standing in the middle of the road and all hundreds of young people around him. Yeah. And when I got to him, he put his hand up to his heart and said, you may stay for a month. You may stay for a year, or you may stay for a lifetime. Yeah, and he brought us to the most beautiful little chalet overlooking the Ganges River at the foothills of the Himalayas. And this was an ancient temple. It had been mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita, but all the statues had been worn away with time. And we spent all the time we wanted there. He said, this place is yours for the time you're here. Wow. And so we'd go into the temple to meditate, and it was the age, it was that age of new spirituality, as we'd say, and at the foothill of the Himalayas, and we went into the Himalayas with him and went to Dehradun, and that was kind of with the rishis and the holy people sitting down and learning how to meditate deeper and learning how to chant and learning all the magical things. But I have one special memory. In the evening, all the spiritual people, all the pilgrims would gather with the drums, cymbals, chants, mantras, and they'd all have neem leaves with little oil in them and a wick, and they would light them. So you had thousands of these little things floating on the Ganges River. Wow. And so it was like your own soul going out there. It was like expanding yourself into the mystery and the wonderful spirituality of these people. There was no questions. They never said why, when, where. They just, it's okay. Everything is lovely. Everything is beautiful. So that was kind of for me, the great moment of my searching. And then a couple of days later, as I recall, I went to Agra to see that Taj Mahal. Okay. Who wouldn't want to see that?
Of course.
And across the way, there was a palace. And I was curious about the palace. So I went to visit it. And it was Shah Jahan, was the emperor of the time, who built the Taj Mahal for his wife, Fatima, who died. And he built this absolute extraordinary place. But I found the palace almost more fascinating because his son deposed him after he'd spent so much money. And so Shah Jahan died looking out on the tomb of his own wife. And that story always fascinated me, how the plans, he was intending to build another type of Taj Mahal for himself to be buried in. So, but a strange little thing happened. And that day, when I come out of the Taj Mahal, I went into a little shop. I wanted to buy a gift for my sister, and beautiful plates and little ornaments. And the guy said to me when I was in there, he said, do you have anything to sell? The Western stuff. And I said, no. I lied, but I was setting him up, I suppose. And then I said, I have only one thing. And he said, how much is that? What's that? I said, it's perfume. Perfume, he said, because you couldn't get that in India. You see, you couldn't get Western Parisian perfume. So anyway, we haggled, and he called me all the names under the sun, and that I was a thieving devil, and so on, which was true. And eventually he gave me 93 rupees for the perfume. And as I was leaving, I said to him, is that water okay to drink? Which I'd never done. I knew it wasn't okay to drink, but I drank it. And as I was going out the door, he shouted after me, you're
Yeah.
I was.
It was in the post.
It was 24 hours later, I was crawling on my hands and knees. And they called the house doctor, forever, whoever he was, and he came, and when I asked him at the end, he said, you must leave here now. You've got to go up to Kathmandu, which I did. And then he said, you must get into the cool climate. And I said, well, how much do I owe you? Because money now is becoming scarce. This is a long journey. He said, you owe me 93 rupees. And 93 rupees was the price I'd taken from the other gangster. I swore after that, no more bartering, no more, I'm finished now. So I ended up in Kathmandu and went on to Pokhara, to the beautiful, beautiful trekking. Every day we'd go into these beautiful places, trekking, walking, and so on. But in the distance was the most beautiful mountain, and I had a love affair with a mountain, Annapurna. Who wouldn't fall in love with that name? Annapurna. And every day I wanted to see it, but the mist covered it every day in the Himalayas. And then I said, no, I can never see Annapurna. That's not my destiny. And on the morning I was leaving, the bus driver, a fellow from England, he said to me, look back. He said, isn't that some sight? The mist had cleared, and I saw Annapurna.
Oh, how lovely.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that was the journey was complete.
So your spirit, it's taken you across the world, and you had that seeking that we spoke about, the search for whatever it may be, inner peace, contentment, fulfillment. And I suppose people are maybe still searching for that in different places. And
this is fascinating because there's an old psychologist, I assume he's dead now, by the name of Robert Johnson. He wrote 3 well-known books, He, We, and She. And his thesis is that each one of us already knows our search. But we know it as teenagers, not as adults. So each one of us has had some sort of an experience along the way that gave us an insight into what this search is. And in my case, I picked up a book one day my father was reading. It was a book on yoga. So I picked it up and it said, lie down and imagine your heart is a rose and breathe into that rose. And I did that. And for 3 days and 3 nights, I was in bliss.
Wow.
I mean, I know what bliss is. That doesn't say. But after 3 days and 3 nights, it left.
Okay.
And I often wondered, why did it leave? And then when I heard this man speak, he said, it's not meant to stay. It's meant to give you a goal that the day will arrive where I will dwell in that place because that's my true nature. So that started me off on the road of studying yoga and meditation and so on and all the things that went with that.
Wow. And then how did you go from that world of spirituality to the corporate world?
I got married. I married the most lovely, beautiful human being that I met in Galway. She was from Minneapolis, and I went to America and got married there. And then she said to me one day, Martin, they're looking for counsellors in St. Mary's Hospital to deal with young people, and they would like, the likes of you to come in with education background. So I went there, and the director, after a few months, said to me, Martin, why don't you go to university? Why don't you go and become qualified as a counsellor so then we can begin from there and so on. So I went there and went through that process of training in hospitals and all sorts of places. And eventually I was in St. John's Hospital in St. Paul's, and this man came to me and said, would I develop a program for them for a corporate need, because they felt that need was very strong. So I agreed to do that, and I set up a program and worked with their people and traveled to different parts of America and got to know that world. And then worked quite well with them. But then one day the marriage ended, as marriages do too, unfortunately or fortunately. And she's coming back next month again to say hello.
Okay.
And she's happily married, thank God. So I'm a free man now.
Okay, you're off the hook.
I'm off the hook. And so I did that. And then I after we divorced, I decided to give it all up. This wasn't who I was. This wasn't the life that I was seeking anyway. It was great money. We had a lovely home. One day, and then true to spirituality, one day was all gone. Vanished like a whiff.
Up in the air.
Like the mist over Galway Bay.
So we had a conversation on the way off, and you said something about identity and our actions, that we start to identify them as us.
Right,
and
right.
you said that wasn't me.
Right.
Could you maybe tell us a little bit about how that works?
Well, identity begins, as we know, as a little child begins, and it's innocent in the beginning. I mean, it's of the nature of the child. And then it gets a gift, it gets a football, or it gets a little, whatever it gets nowadays, a phone, I think.
Yeah, that's all it gets, yeah.
Or maybe an iPad, I don't know. And then the iPad becomes I. And then the I grows. Then I get more. I go to school and I get a uniform, and it's my uniform, or it's my hockey stick, or it's my golf stick, whatever. So now the I is growing and growing, becoming more powerful. And then I grow, and I'm out one night and I look at this beautiful woman and it says, whoa, another part of I.
Yes, powerful.
Very.
Yeah.
A lot of energy there. And then we marry, maybe have kids, and the I is growing, even overwhelming. I think much of our world today is overwhelmed with all the I.
Yeah.
We have so much. And yet, what is it for? What is it all leading to? And then we begin the search of finding out what's it all about. And you go to the Buddhists and they say, well, it's just about it. You have it for now, and tomorrow it's going to be back to emptiness.
Right.
Doesn't sound very reassuring, but they mean it in a good way, apparently. And then eventually we experience that. Everything goes. When I was happily married in Minneapolis, if you said to me, Martin, beautiful cars and everything we had, big money, it'll all stay forever. Oh, yummy, yummy, yummy. But what happened? One day it was gone. I put a bag on my back and I went off to the Pocono Mountains into a yoga center.
Right.
So 1 month I'm this guy, and another month I'm a totally different guy.
Right.
That's life. It's
That's
the
life.
changing power of life.
It's we find that difficult to deal with. It's the change.
Well, we're not trained for that. We've got to be very tolerant and patient with ourselves on this one. Now I've accumulated everything. I've got it all. I've arrived. Well, what's it all about?
Yeah.
Well, what's missing in me? What do I need more to fulfill my life? And of course, we don't have the answer, because we have to now begin to get rid of the I game without getting rid of ourselves. But it's getting rid of the I game. I'm not the car. I'm not the iPhone. I'm not the house. I'm not, but take them away from me, and who am I? Ooh, I'm the emptiness. and now I'm really in trouble.
Oh my God.
And that's what happens to people. They lose everything and then they despair of life. But the whole point is that on the spiritual journey, that's a necessary part of the journey for many people. Now, we can't say generalizations, but for many people, they have to let go of it all. And then one day, you're on your own. Who are you then? If you're on your own and you decide, I'm going to do something different. Well, I came back to Ireland.
Yeah.
And Ireland was an alien place to me. I'd been away for years. I came back. I couldn't fit in. I couldn't belong. I tried to. I practiced the practices I had, and that kept me going. And after a year, I decided to go back to America. So back I went into San Francisco, a whole new world. New world opened up. More more. I lived in a Kriyananda ashram for 2 years. And then I met this man, a fascinating man. I met him sitting by the marina in San Francisco. I was sitting down and he said, do you mind if I join you? I said, of course. And I said, oh, do you mind if I ask where you're from? He said, I got here yesterday. Yesterday? Yeah, he said, I'm from Chicago. And he said, I've just finished a walk. A walk? What do you mean, a walk? He said, I just walked across America. I finished my walk yesterday. I'm saying, is this guy me? But as it turned out, he'd walked across America. And he gave me the most fascinating story of the letting go. It's a wonderful story that he owned a restaurant in Chicago, highly successful. All the big powers used come and, rent it and so on. And so he ended up, unfortunately, becoming an alcoholic.
Right.
And then he lost his wife and children and despaired, as usual, of life, and eventually gave up the alcohol and got his wife and his children back. Nice story so far. And the next day, on the highway, they were killed.
Oh, my goodness.
Exactly. And he ended up deciding it's all over. There's no point in this life. It's meaningless. I've been through hell on earth. And so he decided he would check into a motel and obliterate every part of identification from his clothes so he would just fade away and kill himself.
Right.
As he checked into the hotel within the day, he had a massive stroke. And he ended up in a mental vet home looking after him because they were able to track him at that stage. And every day, young psychiatrists would come by and say to him, will you walk with me today in their lovely garden? And he said, no, I'm too depressed, I'm too sad, I'm too lonely, I'm too down, I'm too everything. And every day the same guy would come by and say, will you walk with me today, was his mantra. So lo and behold, this day he looked out and he saw it was spring. Flowers, whoa, life, trees, whoa, what's that? And he said, I'll walk with you today. And he started walking. Yeah. And that was his recovery. And then when they said to him, you're finished with us, he decided, gee, I think I'll do the walk from called the Wish Fund. It's for him, it was from Chicago to Florida, and people would help him along the way with accommodation and food. And when he got to Florida, he met this young lad. Anyway, I forget the name now, but the young lad, he said to the young lad, what would you like from my walk? What can I give you, a pony or a horse or whatever, a bicycle? And the guy said, no, I would like to walk with you across America. And he took that as a message from life.
Okay.
And he decided, That's what I'll do. When I heard that, I laughed. I said, sure, that's crazy stuff.
Yeah.
I said, how did you survive? How would you eat? How would you? And I'll never forget what he said to me. He said, Martin, I was taken care of. I should have been dead, Martin, but I was alive. What was I alive for was now my quest. And I said, yeah, but how would you eat? And how? Well, he said, I was looked after. He said, I remember one day in Florida on the Everglades side, there was nothing out there. And I saw all these parcels in the distance. And I knew, he said, I was being looked after, that those parcels would have exactly what I needed. And he said, and they had the food I loved, everything was there. I said, who did that for you? Oh, where did that come from?
Yeah.
He said, you have no faith, he said. You have no faith, he said. That's what faith was. So he said, I knew the journey I was on was the journey I was meant to be on. And the cops would pull me in and say, you know, vagrancy on the roads or whatever. And I tell them what I was doing, and they would go out and get, you know, whatever, food and so on, hamburgers, and we'd sit down talking, and life went on. And he said, that's why I arrived here yesterday.
So do you think now, I mean, we chatted about this, people striving and looking for more and more. It's what keeps people up at night, the money, the finances, more and more. And there's never been more kind of insecurity in the world where there's so much change. People don't know what's happening. Do you think it's a lack of faith?
No, I think it's the shadow side. We carry both. We carry the aspiring, I'll walk across America energy. No, not necessarily I'd recommend people do that. Not nowadays.
Not currently.
I think you get about 10 yards and you get a blow on the head. That'll solve that wish. But I think what happens is, as the young'un said, it's the shadow side. And the shadow side can fool us. It can help us. It says to me, hey, don't go down the dark road and, you know, at night without your lights on. I mean,
yeah.
So it can help us, but it can also lead us into all sorts of corners that we get stuck in. And this is the stuckness is more the problem. It's the shadow stuckness. Whereas if we can make sure we maintain a balance, and now I know you don't love that word, but anyway, if we can maintain the via media, I think is maybe a better description, the middle way. There's a way of life. Yes, I can go out and have an ice cream. If I have 10 ice creams, what happens? And I think our world has fallen into the trap of the 10 ice creams.
Okay.
Yeah, so we want 10 ice. Yeah, but one will do. When you were 12 or when you were 6 and you got an ice cream, you were joyful. And now you get it and you're not joyful because now you want 10.
It's the pleasure and the pain. The first one you got 99% pleasure.
Yummy, yummy, yummy.
1%. I want more of that.
Right.
But each time we have it, and this is we're wired this way, right?
That's right.
Every time we have it, the pleasure gets a little bit smaller, and the pain of wanting more gets a little bit bigger.
And the burden of getting the more then becomes a new pain. And this is a side that we have forgotten about. How do I give the model? Somebody came and said, look, I've just bought a new Jeep, and it cost me $200,000. Whoa, yummy, yummy, yummy. You're going to be prestigious and powerful and gorgeous and so on. And then you turn around and say, yeah, but isn't that an awful lot of money? Or you haven't enough money. Or if I spend all that money, I won't have enough money. And so now we're creating pain without recognizing we're creating pain in the very success that they tell us will give us happiness. So if I buy that car and the beautiful smile that's coming with it, you mean I can be happy with the car? No. I want the smile as well. And this is the game that's going on. And so we're living out a kind of a fantasy with a promise of fulfillment that it doesn't have.
Yeah.
It's not the fault of the car.
Promise.
Isn't it gorgeous to be able to buy a beautiful car and drive around and feel comfortable and safe? It's a blessing. Yeah. But it's when we turned it into, and I am the great one behind the great car.
It's the eye.
Exactly. Back to the little fellow, and he said, it's my ball.
Yeah.
And we're back to square one. But now we're not even seeing it. Fascinating.
Yeah, it's and those are the things, I think, those are the things that keep people up at night. It's the finance, it's the worry, it's the, the money, the car, the mortgage, the relationships. So, I mean, what about money?
Money.
Talk to us about money.
I was living in the yoga ashram. I was working for 3 old men in San Francisco, 2 old men in San Francisco. One of them was the most wonderful guy I think I've ever met in the world. I'll never forget him. He was a wonderful character, riddled with life. More. He had a desire for more that had no more. Everything. He'd be telling me about when he was on the South China Seas on cruises and arriving in China, and how he'd meet these beautiful geisha girls, and he had it all. Everything was wonderful. And now, when I met him, he was broken down, craving, riddled with cravings. I used to pity him. And he'd say to me when I would leave in the evening after trying to cook, he'd say to me, don't go, don't go. And I'd hear the loneliness coming out of his heart. So I'd sit with him and say, it's okay, things are fine, it's going to be all right. You're all right for today. Can we just come back to today? It's great today. We have a nice apartment, you have food, you have everything you want. But he never had enough. Yeah,
never enough. Yeah,
Shane and Howard. And he'd be waiting for me when I'd come in the day. And he had such love in him, but he didn't recognize it for himself. That's what I used to see in him. You're so kind. He would have been so kind to the world. And he'd say to me, why doesn't anybody come to me anymore?
Oh, how sad.
How sad.
Yeah.
How sad. And I was thinking, and you had it all. You had the geisha girls. You had the great trips across the whole world. The whole world was yours. And he had made oodles of money. Again, the same trap. Yeah. And then he went to Florida after an operation, and his brother managed to get his hands on his control of the money. So he was embittered towards the brother.
Oh.
And I said, what a sad way to go.
Oh.
The money has come in again.
The pleasure and the pain all there in one little story.
Perfectly so. But anyway, I worked for them, and I tell you a little story. Howard was an Irish fellow. Yeah. He was, they had carriages, horse carriages, and he used to bring all the debutantes to the balls. That was their job. O'Neill was the name, Irish fellow. And they'd bring, he said, Martin, those beautiful young ladies. And Martin was thinking, whoa, yummy, yummy, yummy young ladies. And I'd bring them to the ball, and the mayor would be there, and we'd all be given the best of treatment, and everybody was very happy, and so on. And then one evening he said to me, he said, Martin, would you cook a curry? And so, Jesus, here goes. So I cooked a curry, and I dished up this thing to him. And he said to me, hey, Martin, what's this? And I said, that's a South African curry. And he said to me, it's just as fast as I was. He said to me, yeah, and the next one will be an Irish curry with spuds. Yeah. So that was our relationship. It was kind of lovely. And then one day I was walking with the guy that walked across America. And he said to me, Martin, he said, you're serious, you're a seeker, but you haven't found. I said, yeah, I know that. I haven't found. You've been in yoga centers, you've been in Buddhist centers, you've been in all these places, you've meditated, you've prayed, you've done everything, but you haven't found. Yeah. I said, I don't know what I'm looking for. And he said, why don't you go out and look for it? Huh? I said, I've been looking all my life. What do you want me to do now? He said, take a walk. Abandon it all. You mean leave the yoga center and leave my job with Howard? And he said, yeah. And take off. What do you mean, take off? He said, I'll train you. So he began to train me for 6 months. We'd walk for 5 and 6 hours a day. Right. He was training me to take on a big walk. Right. And then I had a friend down in Santa Fe, New Mexico, the way things work. And he phoned me one day and he said, hey, why don't you come down here? It's magnificent. You'll love it. He said, he's still down there. You'd love it. Sure, I thought about it and said, wouldn't that be some journey? Imagine walking from San Francisco to Santa Fe, New Mexico, 1,000 miles across America. Not across, but down by the coast of America. I said, yeah, we'll do it. So I took it on. Yeah. And many, many things, many, many journeys in that journey, many journeys. And eventually I arrived in Santa Fe, New Mexico. Magic world. I mean, absolutely. Indians, Mexicans, artists, everything was there. It was just film stars. And I worked as a painter, of all things. As my brother said, who gave you a job as a painter?
A cook, a painter.
Painting houses. And who did I bump into but Gene Hackman?
No way.
Yeah, lovely man. He was the loveliest man with his Japanese girlfriend. And because they were in the news lately.
That's right.
Yeah, well, I met them both. They were lovely people.
So you walked the 1,000 miles?
No, I didn't. My legs swelled up when I was in, I was in Flagstaff, Arizona. I got to Flagstaff, Arizona. I had all sorts of experiences. The walk didn't really mean much by then. Yeah. And this woman passed me on a bicycle, this kind of out of a dream world. And I was in a little restaurant later on, and then I got a lift into Flagstaff because my leg had gone out that far. I was in real trouble. And when I got into Flagstaff, who was in there before me? But this beautiful woman with the hair flowing down her back, and she called over and said, "Martin, come here." Smitten and bitten. And I went over and she said, "Gee, Martin, great to see you. You're the guy I passed down the road. I was going so fast I couldn't stop. I wanted to talk to you. How you doing? You're like myself." And she was very much, she said, "By the way, Martin, there's no confusion. I'm lesbian."
Okay.
And in a way I said, "Yeah, that's good. You're very honest." And she said, we spoke for a while and she spoke about her journey and whatever. And then lo and behold, she said, "Well, we could share a campsite for the night for $12. She knew all about the travel. She had planned everything. Of course, I was hit and miss everywhere. Right. And so we were walking down the road and this van pulled up, a sleeper kind of a thing. And this guy was staring over and suddenly I could feel anger coming up in me. "How dare you? Who do you think you are, checking us out?" And then he drove off. And a few minutes later, he came back with a woman. As it turned out, it was his wife. And she got out and he got out and he said, "I'm a bike freak. I love bikes. You got this marvelous bike you got." And they started talking bikes. And the woman came to me and said, "Why don't you come and spend the night with us and then start off fresh in the morning?" Gee, I said, "That'd be wonderful. Showers and food and, a bed. Oh, my God, I'll have a bed." And we did. And just as she dropped me off the next day for the highway to continue walking, a sign on the highway said, "No walkers." Oh, my God, I'm stuck in the middle of Arizona and I can't go back and I can't go forward. And lo and behold, she just dropped the car to me and said, "If you get into trouble, just call me." 2:00 came, 10, 12, 2, no lift. As I used to say, the grey-haired people in their, wagons were on the move. And I decided to call her. I said, "I'm in trouble. The heat was terrible. I'm in trouble." And she said, "I'll be there in 2 minutes." And she was. And when I walked in the house, who was sitting in the hallway? The husband. Oh. There wasn't much spirit in me now, I can tell you. And he said, "You know what I am, Martin?" I said, "I have no idea." "I'm a judge," he said. And he looking at me.
Judging you.
And he said, "I meet all sorts of gangsters, con men, robbers, thieves, rapists." And then it dawned on me, oh my God, the guy thinks I'm circling back to somehow molest his wife or something. I don't know. But I sat down and they were the longest 3 hours of my life. I was sweating bricks. He said, "Why didn't you put up a sign saying walk to New Mexico and they'd give you a lift?" I said, "I don't know. I didn't have any pencil." And about 5:00, he said, "Okay, time to go." I said, "Go where?" He said, "Time to go. Get in the car." In the car to the bus station. Handed me a ticket. I remember it was $59. A lot of money for me out there in those days. And lo and behold, he said, "I wish you well in New Mexico." And I was just tempted to tell her, I'm trying to do this walk as a kind of a spiritual journey.
Yeah.
And she began to cry. Yeah, I knew I touched, there was some connection there. I never forgot her. But that's how I got into Santa Fe, New Mexico on the Greyhound bus.
Wow.
You know the song, "Take a Greyhound, it's a dog of a way to get around."
That's incredible. So you've done the Middle East, you've done India, you've been in the corporate world, you've gone on this huge journey, then you've walked across Santa Fe, and then what?
And then I met a Sham woman down in New Mexico, an Indian woman down in the Pueblo. My friend was down there, a musician, and poor guy's gone through a hard time now with cancer. But anyway, I went down to the Pueblo to help somebody else meet this shaman. She was a famous woman in the Indian world. And after she'd finished with the Indian woman, she said, "I need to talk to you, Martin." And she said, what are you doing now? And I said, no, I'm just come in here. I really don't know what's going to happen next. And she said, well, what's going to happen next is you're going to leave this world. It's not your world. Your world is where you came from. That's where you belong, she said. You cannot fight that. You will try to stay here, but it won't work out. And she said, it'll take about 4 years for you to realize that. And then you will go back to your own land.
And back you went.
Yeah, but I knew then that I had reached the end of the journey. So it was different going back. It was a different journey altogether.
I think we're all on our journey. So some of us are scattered. Some of us go very far afield and end up in all kinds of conundrums, like yourself and myself, you know. And eventually we all come back around. What would you say to people who are lying awake at night trying to figure that out, or between those two worlds? We talked about the money and the we need a certain amount of it, and again,
vital.
You know, the word balance that I don't like much is kind of there. But the people who are lying awake at night, maybe torturing themselves with different desires and wants and needs. You came back and I suppose you maybe found your purpose of being able to shed light upon these areas of life for people. So what can you tell us about some of the types of issues that people come to you with? I know relationships people struggle with. Money people struggle with. It's what keeps them awake at night. What do you see as manifesting for people?
When I was in San Francisco living in the yoga center, this guy, a very, very great seeker, I would say, very disturbed, but a great seeker, he came to me one evening and he said, I said, open the door. Yeah, he said, come with me, come. So we went in on the bus and we arrived at a Catholic convent. Mm-hmm. And he knocked on the door and I said, what's this about? Oh, he said, she's here. She's here. I know she's here. So who's here? Mother Teresa, he said. No. I looked in the window and who was there? Mother Teresa. Now, what's that got to do with your question? Everything. Mother Teresa said, welcome. Help the poor if you can. She said, remember, the illness of America is loneliness. She said, the most prosperous nation the world has ever seen, and yet it's plagued with loneliness. When we're in the bed at night, at whatever, 1 in the morning or 2 in the morning, when the sort of demon world seems to be more real, we're in isolation.
We're with ourselves.
Well, the great psalm, thou shalt not fear the terror of the night. There's nothing to fear, but we believe it's a fact that the fear is real. So I have no money to pay the electricity. Well, that's very real. It's very painful. So of course it's going to disturb me. But is it a fact I'll never be able to pay electricity? No, it's not. It's only a fact that now I have trouble paying my electricity. But that can change. Everything can change. And we get locked into, is it a fact? Can I not phone up the electricity company and ask them, can they delay, or can I pay part of it, or whatever? There is always some way out, we hope. We wish for some way out. We learn techniques. The reason we learn techniques, we have, in Catholicism, you have the rosary. In Islam, you have inshallah, God willing. I'm going through something terrible different, but this is God is willing it for me. Now, I don't know whether people believe that or I do, but that's what's happening. It's reality. Yeah. But will it always be like this? That's where we get locked in. We narrow our world the more we go into fear. Then the world becomes smaller. It becomes the little I is now frightened. They took my ball, Mammy. What'll I do? Yeah. I'm afraid to go out to them because they'll take my ball again. Although my ball's already gone. There's life. So how do we cope with the terror of the night? Thou shalt not fear the terror of the night. That is a spiritual issue. Each individual is called upon. In Catholicism, it could be the Rosary. In Islam, it would be God willing, inshallah. In Hinduism, it would be, on earth, sky and heaven we meditate upon. We have the power in ourselves, is what they're saying, to overcome these terrors. Right. But we don't believe that, because if they come too often, we feel defeated by them or, broken by them.
And you said to me before one time, when it inevitably does come to fear, welcome.
Yes, it's St. Francis' approach. Welcome, sister fear or brother fear. I can't give you the full quote, but the essence of it is welcome. You see, this is very much Buddhism also. If I can embrace the suffering that comes to me, then I am growing spiritually. You mean I'm in an awful state. My wife has left me. I've lost my home. I have nothing. I have nothing. Rejoice. Look at spiritually how you're growing now. That's bullshit.
I'm going to come back to Khalil Gibran. Pain is the breaking of the shell of understanding.
That's where we're going. Yes, pain is the breaking. Anyone who has lived long enough, the first noble truth of Buddhism, to be born is to suffer. Oh, I don't want to suffer. But if one can embrace the suffering, if one can say, let's take the world today, wars. Can I change that war? Not a chance. Not in a million years. But can I say, may they be happy, may they be well, and may they be safe this day? You say, that's ridiculous. They're not well, they're not safe, and they're not happy. But maybe that little vibration will save one little kid or one parent of a child. I don't know what's going to happen as a consequence. And so much of our acceptance and how we cope with those disasters is how we, in a sense, respond to our own disasters. We're trying to transcend the limited me more. That's a hard journey. Yeah. That's a difficult journey unless Paul on the road to Damascus, boom, and he got it all in one packet. And then he started telling the rest of us how to live. But that's what we're dealing with. We're dealing with something so powerful, but on the other hand, the energy to counterbalance that is also within us. Okay. So if we over-identify with the 2 o'clock in the morning, no money to pay the electricity, yes, without putting in a little bit of the other, a little bit of spice, a little bit of sugar, the mantra or the prayer or the God's will, or that's where the spirituality comes in. That's what gives meaning to spirituality. Right. And that's why I think within Christianity, the teaching was so powerful, because he was saying, get rid of the rules. Get rid of the rules and do the right thing. But of course, the old world loves the rules. I want to be secure and safe and sound. And if I say don't, that'll do it. Well, we know it doesn't work.
Back to the rules.
Back
to the security of the rules.
Right. And then more rules.
and then resentment and anger. We talked about fear. These are the things that keep people.
Anger. A lot of anger in the world at the moment.
There is.
Wow. Anger really just says, I'm right and you're wrong. That's all. It's a very simple thing. I'm right and you're wrong. If you're wrong, then I'm right, and that means my little I can be.
It's back to the I, isn't it?
We're
off
and running again. They did this to me, did they? Sorry to hear that. Will they always do it to you? No. But I want to stay angry because I feel stronger. It gives me power. My anger. We'll send the military into Chicago. Sure, what's that all about? Or into wherever, Texas or whatever.
Yeah.
What's it about? Yeah. I'm angry at the world and I need a way to express it. And you've given that power to me, and now I'm going to show it to the whole world.
So anger gives you power.
Anger gives a false power. It's an illusion of power. Yeah. Whereas the genuine power comes out of knowing who I am.
Yes.
I am that I am.
Yeah.
What's that mean?
Mm.
But that's a spiritual.
It's the knowing of the self. It's the journey of getting to know oneself.
Absolutely, and
Because-
slowly the leaves
Yeah.
are falling.
Because otherwise, I mean, we're creatures of habit and reactions, so we just fall into our way of responding that you alluded to earlier. You talked about that, the child with the ball, the emotional reaction.
Later on, the ball becomes cocaine.
Yeah.
Later on, the ball becomes, oh, that's the woman. If only I had sex with her, I'd be happy ever after.
Yeah. It's pleasure.
But you're not looking beyond the sex. What's the sex afterwards? You find out she's already married. How do you feel then? They were a whole new ball game again. Time to get out of town. So yes, it's fascinating to think about it. What is our destiny? What are we? Because there is none. That's the illusion that somebody said the Buddhists look to the past and the Christians look to the future. And I think there's a great truth in that. They look to the past and they tell you it's karmic, you did this, and you caused wars and whatever, kill people. And then the Christians say, and when you're perfect, you'll arrive at paradise. But I'm not born perfect. How can I be perfect?
Yeah. So tell us then about where it's all going. We had a discussion on the way up about quantum spirituality.
If there's one theme, we say, for example, we've discovered about human life, it's ironic, come out of addiction. And what it has taught us is that if we're not connected as full human beings, we're going to end up becoming enslaved in a world that's very cruel. That's what really addiction is about, the lack of connection. And that's why we humans are born for a connection. So now where does it all go to? Well, it goes to the fact that, thy neighbor as thyself. When we reach that stage, then it's not just about Martin's world. It's not about Martin's ball. It's about, well, what about my neighbor down the street? He's not well, or she's not well. What can I do? I'm transcending the I. I'm going now into the spiritual realm. I am already in it, but I don't recognize it.
Yes. So are you saying that it's about letting go of the faults, of the pleasures, of the entrapments of the we go deeper down then into the emotions of what's driving that, the fear, the anger of all
anger
that.
and attachment. Probably anger, detachment, and it would be the two of the poisons. I can't remember the third one. It's one that surprised me.
Aversion.
It's strange enough. It's not aversion. It's anger, detachment. Anyway, the third one I don't remember, but it probably doesn't apply to me. The third attachment. I know a lot about attachment. Yeah, I know a lot about attachment. And anger, these are the poisons. If I want to drink them, the Buddhists use the model of salt water. They say, if you're thirsty and you drink salt water, what happens?
You get a thirst for more.
Well, and then eventually you'll die from it. You'll poison yourself. Well, that's what anger does to us. It poisons us without we recognizing. Not only is it in the immediacy, it's stealing the life that could be there instead. Yeah, that's what anger does. It steals. It's a great thief. Or as my uncle used to say, if you took a biscuit and he wasn't looking, and he'd find out, you cursed thief. So, yeah, these are profound questions that I think everyone on their own journey will be exposed to dealing with. And how they deal with them is they're going to be their way. It can't be somebody, I can't, work out somebody else's life for them. It'd be an absurdity. It'd be disrespectful to them.
And you get that, I'm sure you get that all the time in counselling. And I remember before, I think you'd said that, people come to me wanting me to fix their partner.
Of course. If she would only behave, what a wonderful world it would be. And well, that usually brings us around to, and how are you doing? That's the nature of the life. I don't want to take responsibility. I want to go into the shadow of her world. And my shadow tells me exactly how great I am at describing her faults. But if you want to say to me, but Martin, take the spot out of your own eye.
Yeah.
What are you seeing about yourself?
Mm.
Yeah, but she did this to me. Look at me now. Pity me now. Love me now. Give me something now. Give me more.
So it's it's a self-examination.
Totally.
Yeah.
Self-awareness, but not absorption.
There's a difference. There's a distinctive
That's the
difference.
discrimination. The buddhi, in yoga, they're very strong on this word, buddhi. Buddhi. Buddhi is discrimination. I came out and I had a puncture. Who did this to me? Nobody. And somebody did.
Yeah.
I never had a puncture before. Where are we going? I'm looking for the shadow. Tell me how bad the world is.
Right.
The shadow wants to agree with me. It wants to tell me I'm not the problem. That's the problem.
Right, okay.
She's the problem.
Yeah.
He's the problem. They're the problem.
That's we spoke about the mind defending oneself.
To the bitter end.
Yeah. The last
end.
The last thing I'm going to do is admit that I done anything wrong in this situation or take culpability. Yeah. So we're like rotisserie chicken at night, spinning around the bed.
That's all right. 2:00 in the morning. The reason I have no money for the electricity is that my brother took everything.
Yeah.
And I had one question. Were you drinking over the weekend? A few. Do you know how much you spent?
So what's then the what tools can we use? Are there different tools we can use to help ourselves transcend those things?
Slow down. You're moving too fast. Got to make the morning last. Yeah, it's a very important part of it, I believe. That's the purpose of spirituality. That's the purpose of prayer. That's the purpose of religion. That's the purpose of life, is to slow it down. Come home. Moksha is what I think in the yogis call it. Moksha, come home. Great word. It even sounds lovely in the mouth. Moksha.
Yeah, it does indeed. Moksha.
Yeah. Come home. Come home to who you are.
Okay.
There's nothing in the world wrong with it. You have your faults, you have your strengths, you have your weaknesses, you have your power. And recognizing them for what they are. So when I see it's his fault and say, hold on now, just stand back a moment. Who was kind to you when there was no one else there? Gee, I never thought of that. Who supported you when you were on your own and you had no money and you were desperate and you asked him, could he help you out? Yeah, but they did this to me. And our world loves, they did this to me. Or he did this to me, the plural single version. He did this to me. And our world keeps on spinning that stuff up in their own heads. And all they're doing is weakening themselves and they don't know it. Every time you go to bed with a bad thought and bad attitude and bad will, what do you expect? I was reading a book the other day, heavy stuff on the CIA, and I was talking to someone. I said, geez, I didn't sleep at all last night. And they did say to me, what were you reading? Because, I like to read. I was reading about the CIA. I'd drop that if I was you.
some nice, I call it cognitive chewing gum, some nice light reading. CIA psychops.
Right on. And I finished a book on Fisk, that fellow from the Lebanon, buried in Dublin, interestingly enough, about the Middle East. And I lived there. I mean, I had a pretty good sense. I wouldn't recommend anyone reading it. Now, it's a great story, but I wouldn't recommend anyone reading it. A lot of torture, a lot of pain, a lot of suffering. But the reality being, that was his tea. That was his cup of tea, not mine.
Yeah.
So taking care of oneself is a very wise part of the journey. We mentioned in the car a little bit of exercise. I don't have to do a marathon or a triathlon. I can do a nice little walk, hopefully somewhere nice and green and pleasant and a little bit of water. I can eat decent food. Good, nice, decent food is all right too. And I can sleep.
Oh yeah.
It can be very simple.
It can. It should. We forget the foundational stuff, the connection with nature that we spoke about.
That's right.
You said that you mentioned the word connection there with humans, and we spoke about that, the connection with human. We get caught up in the whirlwind of the promises of attainment, of attachment of these things.
Promise.
And the fear of losing maybe the things that we
Terrible. Imagine I have a beautiful Lexus, bought it yesterday, and I come out of my house and it's gone.
What would the neighbours think?
Parts found in Bratislava. And that's the world we live in.
Yeah.
I mean, imagine there's a Buddhist phrase of this great teacher, and they came to him and said some fellow had broken in and stolen a precious statue. And he said, well, the next time will you help him steal it? Where do we go with that? I mean, that thinking is possible. Imagine having that thinking where I say, gee, they stole my wallet. God, they must be desperate. Now, we're not going around wishing to steal my wallet. I see how I'd react then. But well, where does that thinking come from? How can some people think like that?
I heard a great story about the again, it could be from the Buddhist tradition, where a guy had a beautiful diamond, and passerby said, "Oh my God, that's beautiful." And he said, take whatever you want. He said, give me the diamond. He took the diamond, and as he walked away, he thought, what is it about that guy that he's just able to give that diamond away? And he realized that was more precious than the diamond. So he went back and he said, I want you to teach me. You haven't got that level of attachment.
And that's a training. We've got to be gentle with that.
Okay.
That's a train. I can't do that in a day, but I can do it. My teacher used to say, the water from the top, from the tap, goes tap, tap, tap on the rock. Means nothing today. But if I come back in 30 years, he said, the water still will be there, but no rock.
Okay.
And that's what we're dealing with. And that's why it requires tremendous patience and gratitude to the self for the effort.
Right. The small effort.
The smallest. I wake up in the morning, like the song says, I woke up this morning, things were looking bad. It seemed like only silence was the total friend I had. But fortunately, I had the key to change reality. It's a drug song, but it has the spark in it. It has the spark. Things will get better. Now, I'm not necessarily advocating the way of getting better, but every little success is accumulating. It's another drop on the rock. And that's a reassuring image. I've always loved it. It doesn't ask much. It just simply says, be present that you're dropping today a little bit of the water onto the rock. And someday that rock will not be as strong as it appears now. Isn't that a great image?
Oh, that's a lovely image. I've loved the conversation. It's absolutely fascinating. Your journey is fascinating. Your work is incredible. The insights that you've helped me with, and many other people I know. The messages are profound. It's understanding the self. Is that the only journey worth going on? I think it's been described as is the inward journey. It gives, I think, me and maybe our listeners a sense of security that actually, you know what, everything's, I think, as DeMello said, everything is exactly as it should be. Everything is going to be fine. We don't need to use. We spoke about the waste of energy, right? This huge sapping of energy that we can have from all of the turmoil, the emotion, the fear, the anger, the stuff that keeps us awake at night. Suffering. Yeah, that we can be sucked into, and so it's the letting go, and the finding the joy in the moment, in the daily life, you know, and not forgetting that. And I know you spoke about the 5.
And I'll finish on that.
Yes.
I'm walking on my walk now that I've mentioned. I come into a great naval city. There is such a thing. It's called Vallejo. Fabulous looking place. And I look out in the ocean, and there's battleships and all service ships and all sorts of ships from the Second World War lined up for scrapping. They've been there for years. And I'm sitting there just, minding my own business, as they say. I'm having a Coke and a bar of chocolate after walking. And this guy comes over to me with a fishing rod, and he says, "Hello, how are you?" And I say, "Fine, kind of." He said, "Where you go?" I said, "I go to New Mexico." "You go where?" "New Mexico, Santa Fe, New Mexico." "Long journey." "Yes, long journey," I tell him. "It's very hot out there, burning hot." I say, "Yes, it's all of that." He said, "I'm from Guatemala. I have not seen my father in 28 years. Do you think he will remember me?" I said, "How can a father forget his son?" So we had an instant rapport.
Mm.
And he said, "How will you protect yourself? You got gun?" I said, "No." He said, "Well, how do you survive?" I said, "Well, I don't wish evil on anybody." Good way to go, he said, "I think." He said, "I had a little grandson born 2 days ago. He is the size of my thumb." And I said, "Lucky grandchild. Why you say that?" He said, "He's going to get a lot of love from you." "You'll get a lot of love from me." And then I said, "It's time for me to go. I got to go on. The evening is coming on." He said, "One thing to tell you, to remember me by. In the left hand, I have 5 sorrows. In the right hand, I have 5 joys." And I never forgot that.
Isn't that lovely?
Isn't that a powerful image?
Oh, powerful.
From a man from Guatemala that never saw his father.
We forget that, don't we? We forget that we obsess about one hand
That's right. 5 problems. Look what they did to me.
and we chase the other hand.
That's right.
What a wonderful way to finish. I'm going to ask you one last thing, Martin, if you don't mind. And it's the way we've ended sessions before. If you wouldn't mind doing a little meditation to bring us back, to ground us.
We'll do that. We'll do a
lovely way
little
to finish.
meditation. Just settle into the chair, nice and easy. Just letting the chair be the chair and your body the body as you relax. And feel the ground, feel the earth, the generous earth under your feet. Connected to the earth is nature, trees, flowers, grass. It gives life to us all. Connecting with the body, connecting with the earth. And now connect with the breath. Feel the flow of the breath as if it's your first breath, the breath of life. Breathing in the new life, the very life of life in this moment. And breathing out any concerns, any worries, any stress from the past. Let it go now. Let it go. It's done. And returning to the breath. Smooth, even, deep into the belly. Feel the breath expanding as you inhale, opening to the world, and contracting to the spine as you exhale, the wonderful spine. Establishing the breath, smooth, even, deep, and exhaling out, letting go, letting go, letting be, letting be. Just let the body do the work. The body relaxes. And now coming to the mind of torture or the mind of love, the mind of trouble or the mind of peace. And imagine the mind at peace, filled with love as light falls on water, free. And feel the breath flowing and now beginning to relax the body and telling the body to relax through the body. Relaxing the neck and the throat and the shoulders and the elbows and the wrists and the fingers and the fingertips. And relaxing out from the shoulders to the fingertips, any unease, any discomfort. Just letting go, letting go. Again, back to the neck, throat and the shoulders, and the shoulder blades and the spine, the vertebrae along the spine, the highway of energy, the beautiful spine, and giving permission for each vertebrae to relax, just letting go, being present. And the muscles along the spine that support the spine. Release any tension, any discomfort. Into the thighs, knees, calves, ankles, soles, and toes. And now breathing from the shoulders to the fingertips and washing away with a beautiful beam of light any troubles, any concerns, any worries. And back to the shoulders, to the toes, and releasing out all of the life that is past, gone forever. Breathing out through the toes, all of the troubles, all of the struggles, all of the battles that are finished. As you breathe in and breathe out, now relaxing the scalp and the forehead and the eyes, especially the eyes. And imagine a beautiful beam of light descending on a lake, and your eyes rest on the lake and the light. The light is love, loving the eyes, the wonder of the eyes. And the light flows into the brain and calming all of the vibrations and releasing into a brain of light and love and peace. And now stretch the jaws 3 times to release the tension in the jaws. 1, 2, 3. Relax the throat and relax the heart center. Open the heart to the world. Open the heart to the light. Open the heart to love. And now feel the breath deepening of nature. It deepens into the tummy, expanding into the world, and releasing the liver, any tension, the kidneys, the spleen, the pancreas, the lungs, and especially the heart center. Freeing the heart center to expand into life toward your loved ones, and sending them that love and light. And repeat after me, may I be happy, and may I be well, and may I be safe. May I be happy, may I be well, and may I be safe. May my family be happy, may my family be well, and may my family be safe. And rest in that love for a moment. I will count to 10. On the count of 8, open the eyes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Open the eyes. 9, 10.
Thank you, Martin. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you enjoyed the podcast. If you did, then please hit that subscribe button wherever you get your podcasts.